Okay, so today's topic is, as I said, this, that, or the Adar. Okay, in that we have now 2 months of Adar, and who is the real Adar? Which one is the real Adar? And actually, interestingly, we have, in terms of one thing we're going to see, it's the second Adar. According to another aspect, we'll see. I got it. Thank you so much. It is actually the first Adar. So let's begin first with the Gemara. Okay, that's on the first side that I gave you. It's the Gemara Megillah on Daf Vav Amud Beis. Okay, so I've broken it up into 3 different parts over there. We have the Mishnah, we have the Braita that the Gemara brings, and then we have the Gemara's discussion of these opinions. The Mishnah states, Karu et ha-Megillah ba'adar harishon v'nit abra hashana. Okay, if the Megillah was read in the first month of Adar, and at the time that the Megillah was read, the understanding was that there is just going to be one Adar that year. I'm sorry, let me backtrack just a moment if I could. We follow a lunar year, which is approximately 354 days to the year. Every lunar month is about 29 and a half days. 29 and a half times 12 gives us the 354. The Torah tells us by Pesach that Pesach is in Chodesh Aviv, Chag Aviv. It's the month, it's the holiday of the spring. That teaches us that we have to make our calendar fit with the solar calendar. Therefore, even though we run a lunar calendar, we adjust in order to stay within the proper seasons. Right? The Muslims also follow a lunar calendar. They don't have any correction in their calendar, and therefore their holidays work their way from the spring back to the winter, to fall, to summer, right? Basically every 30, if a Jew and a Muslim were born on the same day, 33 years, so after 33 years, the Jew will turn 33 when the Muslim turns 34. Okay, because 33 times 11 is about a year. So his birthday comes about every year 11 days earlier than the Jewish person's birthday, or the secular calendar person's birthday. And after 33 years, we would count 33 years on our calendar, he would have turned 34. He had gained, aged another year.
Asians also use a lunar calendar.
Without adjustments?
No, with adjustments.
With adjustments. Okay. The way that we adjust is that if you do the math, 7 out of every 19 years, 19 times 11 is 209, 7 times 30 is 210. So basically 7 out of every 19 years, we add in an extra month. And by doing that, we keep ourselves in line with the solar year. So, as we have this year, right, yesterday and the day before was Rosh Chodesh, the start of the month of Adar. It was the start of the month of Adar 1. Okay? There are 2 Adars this year. Okay? So, the Mishnah discusses if they read the Megillah in the first Adar, and then the year was turned into a leap year, Koren ota ba'Adar Sheni. Even though it was read in the first month, and at the time it was read, it was with the understanding that it actually is the real month of Adar, it has to be read again in Adar Sheni. Okay, what needs to be done again is Kriyat HaMegillah and Matanot LeEvyonim. And the Gemara later on explain, however, in terms of not fasting or not eulogizing on the 14th and the 15th of Adar, that is the case both Adar 1 and Adar 2.
If you have 2, it means we're in a leap year.
Yeah.
Having 2 means we're in a leap year. That is correct.
Yeah,
Dov.
2 leap years this year. Secular
Okay,
leap year.
right. That's interesting, right? So we had the secular leap year, February 29th,
Right.
which we're going to touch upon Judaism's version of February 29th. And we also have the classic leap year, Jewish leap year, which is the extra month of Adar.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I know that our calendar is set now, but the way you just expressed it, was there some end point by which they, if they were going to, the base, whatever, was going to declare a second Adar, that they had to do it by a certain time?
It has to be done, well, it has to be done before the 30th day of Adar.
Oh,
Once you reach a day which could feasibly be Nisan, right? Even if it's not Nisan, the 30th is always, right? Especially when we're working with witnesses. Now we're very set. We're working with witnesses, so every month could go either way. So as long as you're still in the month of Adar, and you haven't even hit a day that is potentially Nisan, meaning the 30th day of Adar, which is a swing day, could be 30th of Adar, or could be the 1st of Nisan. As long as you've not reached a day which could even potentially be Nisan, we are good.
So these are the J witnesses that we respect.
Okay.
Right. What does that got?
Okay. So, the Mishnah quoted the opinion that even though you've done it in Adar 1, thinking that that was the main Adar, the only Adar, it will not count. And once Beit Din proclaims the second Adar, then we've got to do it again. The Gemara brings, which is the second paragraph that I have there, the Gemara brings a Braita with three opinions. We're going to go with the last two. Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Yossi Omer Ein Koronota ba'Adar Hasheni. He says you will not read it again in Adar Sheni. Shekol mitzvot hanoga b'Sheni nogot barishon. All of the mitzvot of the second Adar are actually performed when? In the first Adar. So Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Yossi is of the opinion that when it comes to Megillah reading, the real Adar is the first Adar. Rabbi Shingalil Rabbi Mishum Rabbi Yossi, Shingalil says name Rabbi Yossi, Af Koronata ba'Adar Sheni. No, it must be read in the second Adar. Shekol mitzvah shenoga b'Sheni ein noagot barishon. All of the mitzvot of the second Adar are not done in the first Adar. So we have these two opinions. Rabbi Yossi says the real Adar when it comes to Megillah reading is the first Adar. And the second one is the add-in. And Shingalil says no, the real Adar is the second Adar. Even in a case when when the first Adar began, we thought that was the only Adar. We only added in the second month afterwards. Nevertheless, that first one becomes the added month, and the real month of Adar is the second, and that is where all the mitzvot of Purim would apply. Yes, Steve?
We might come to it, I didn't look ahead, but isn't there a need, a requirement rather, to have Adar and Nisan adjacent to each other?
We'll come to that soon.
Oh.
We'll come to that soon.
If you have one or two, they'll always be next to each other.
No, but I mean in terms of
We're going to come to. Let's wait. We'll see that in the Gemara soon.
Because
You
it's
can have Toyota and
confusing.
Nissan.
I'm sorry?
It's very confusing. If the first was there, is the only one, you add a second, the first becomes less important than an added.
Right. So we'll have to understand why.
Is it newer?
Well, let's understand why. And the Gemara is going to deal with that right now. So let's go a little bit further. Okay? The Gemara then says, which is the third part that I copied, Rabbi Yochanan said, Rav Chiba Abbas in the name of Yochanan, Hilchata We follow the opinion, the second opinion that we brought, Rabbi Shimon, the son of Gamliel, that the second Adar is the main Adar. On that, Amar Yochanan said, Ushneim mikra echad darshu. They both actually derived it from the very same pasuk, the very same verse that one of them looked at it and said, oh, that tells me Adar 1. The other looked at it and said, oh, that tells me Adar 2. What is that verse? The pasuk in Megillah, when it's talking about the observance of Purim, said, B'kol shana v'shana. That Purim, actually the Gemara later on will tell us that a proof that we have that the Megillah was written with what's called Ruach HaKodesh, with divine inspiration, is that there is a pasuk that says that it is celebrated every year, and its memory will never be forgotten from their children. Now, how do you know its memory will? How can you write its memory will never be forgotten? Right? We always hope things will be remembered forever, but very few things are remembered forever. And there are many other minor holidays, non-Torah origin holidays, which we no longer maintain. We had the whole Megillah Tanit filled with days that were celebratory days, which we no longer celebrate. The only ones that remained are Hanukkah and Purim. So how could the author have written clearly, categorically, its memory will never leave from their descendants? That's Ruach HaKodesh. So we're taught it's meant to be done each and every year. Now, the each and every year lets us know that there needs to be this similarity each and every year. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi Savar B'kol Shana V'Shana. Each and every year. Makol Shana V'Shana. Each and every year. When does Adar fall out? It's Adar Samech L'Shvat. It's the Adar that comes right after the month of Shvat. Avkan, so too this year, when you have two Adars, which one do you pick? The one that comes right after the previous month, right after Shvat, which is Adar 1. Rosh Leo Savar, he says, I agree. B'kol Shana V'Shana, each and every year. Makol Shana V'Shana Adar Samech L'Nisan, just like every year, the Adar comes right before Nisan. So when you have one Adar, it's after Shvat, and it's before Nisan. So is our emphasis on it's after Shvat, so when there's two, it's the first one, or is our emphasis on it's before Nisan? And then when there's two, it's the second one.
If
I
you
think
wanted
we need
to
a
work
third one.
both ways, the way to do it is to make the leap month Shvat. Then it would always be the month before and the month after.
Yes. But we always add in. We always only add in a month of Adar.
When did that start?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. That's a good question.
When does Shvat start?
No.
When
was it established that the only month that we can add in is the month of Adar?
It wasn't last week, I can show you that.
That is correct, though. Okay. Now, so clearly, it's not indicated one way or the other from the pasuk. One of them felt the emphasis should be the one after Shvat, which is the first Adar. The other one said it's the one before Nisan, which is the second one. Okay, so being that it's not conclusive one way or the other, let's look logically. So the Gemara says, Bishlama, it's good. I understand Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, who said that we do the first one, Mistaber Ta'ama. His reasoning is very logical. Why? Te'ein ma'avirin al ha-mitzvot. We have a general rule, we don't pass by a mitzvah. You have a chance to do the mitzvah, when should you do it? At the earliest possible time. That is why a Brit Milah, the circumcision, ideally is done 8th day, early in the morning. or right? We had a lunch and learn this. We allow for accommodations, but ideally it's meant to be done early. The Gemara actually has a play on words from chametz, which is leavening. That happens when you wait around at leavens. We say, right, that mitzvah haba liyadcha al tachmitzena. When a mitzvah opportunity comes your way, don't allow it to become chametz. Don't sit around and allow it to just sit there and rise. Take advantage of it as quickly as you can, with as much alacrity as possible. So therefore, I understand. Your opportunity came around in the first Adar. Do it then. So that logically makes sense to me. Ella, but Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, my tame, what is his reasoning? Rabbi Tavi says, Tama, the reason of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is mismach geula legeula adif. Even though, granted, Adar 1 has in its favor the concept that we don't pass by a mitzvah, but Adar 2 has in its favor the concept of we want to have back-to-back redemptions. Meaning, Pesach is the month of Passover, Nisan is the month of Pesach, of Passover, that is a month of redemption. Therefore, we want to have Adar back to back, as it normally is. B'kol shana v'shana. Each and every year, it's back to back. And therefore, this year, when there are two Adars, which Adar will be the one picked for Purim? The second Adar, because Mismach Geula Legeula Adif, it's preferred to have Geula back to back with Geula, second Adar, going right into Nisan, and that is even more important than the general concept that we have of Ein Ma'avirin Al HaMitzvot. So we will, that we don't pass by a mitzvah, we will pass by the mitzvah, we will pass by that first Adar, even though that could have been considered the proper time for Megillah reading, and Purim is properly observed, Megillah reading and all else, on the second Adar. That is what, of course, we are following. And the Aruch HaShulchan points out very interestingly that the Gemara's whole question was really in a case where Adar Aleph was Purim, when we did not yet know there would be an Adar Bet. But when it's clear that there is going to be 2 months going in, as we have our calendars set well in advance, then even though the Gemara's reasoning of Ein Ma'avirin Al HaMitzvot, it doesn't seem to be dependent on that, but the Aruch HaShulchan says, when we have it all set up as we do, there everyone would be in agreement that we go with the second Adar. Okay? Therefore, when it comes to Purim, the time for Purim is the second Adar, Adar Sheni. I believe it's March 28th this year. I'm not sure exactly, but a little ways to go. Okay?
So if someone was born on a regular Adar,
And March 24th.
if someone was born on a regular Adar, would we celebrate it on the first or the second?
Okay. Mm-hmm. So that is interesting. Okay? So let's work our way through. Okay? Let's go now to the second issue, which is that of yahrtzeit. Okay. That is, I have it both in Hebrew and English, 3 different parts over there. Kishe'era yom shemait aviv o imo. This is in the laws of ta'anit, of fasting. And many people fast on the day of passing, on the yahrtzeit of a parent. Okay? There are different customs. Kishe'era yom shemait aviv o imo ba'adar va'ashana mu'beret. If a person has a yahrtzeit in Adar, and it is a Shana Me'uberet, it is a leap year, so the parent died in a year where there was just 1 month of Adar. Now the yahrtzeit is coming around, and there are 2 Adars that year. Which is the yahrtzeit? And when would the person fast? Those who fast. Would they fast on the first Adar or the second Adar? The Shulchan Aruch says, Yit'aneh ba'Adar Sheni. You should fast on the second Adar. And that makes sense to us. As we just said by Megillah reading, we view the second Adar to be that Adar. Now just jump down in the sheet over here before we go to the Ramah. This is the Shulchan Aruch, Rav Yosef Karo, and that is what is followed by the Sephardic communities. On that, the Mishnah Brura says, okay, that's again the second one over there. In the year that the parent passed away, there was not a leap year. There were not 2 Adars. In the following years, there will come out some years which have 2 Adars. Dat HaMechaber, the opinion of the Mechaber, of the author, the Shulchan Aruch, the Karo, is the Stam Adar hu Adar Sheni. The Stam Adar, the real Adar, is the second Adar. V'yesh omim lehefech, where there are those that say the opposite. The Gam yesh b'inyanenu tam de'ein ma'avir ala mitzvot. There is over here the concept that we had before of ein ma'avirin al ha-mitzvot. We don't pass by an opportunity. Let's see now, going back up top, in both the Hebrew and the English where it says the gloss, to the Ramah. The Ramah, Moshe Isserles, wrote his gloss on the Shulchan Aruch where the Ashkenazic and Sephardic traditions differ. There he writes, V'yesh omen, there are those that say, Diyat'aneh berishon, he should fast on that first one. Im lo shemet b'shnat ha'ibur ba'adar sheni. Right, clearly, if a person's parent died on a year where there are 2 Adars, then clearly, on a following year where there are 2 Adars, the yahrtzeit would be on whichever Adar the person passed on. Okay? And if the person died, and when there's only 1 Adar, there's not much to choose from. Right? The question is, when a person died in a year where there was only 1 Adar, what does the family do in subsequent years when there are 2 Adars? So again, right? So if he didn't die in a year where there are 2, there are those that say that the yahrtzeit should be on the first Adar. V'chein haminhag litanot barishon, and that is the custom, he says, to fast on the first one. However, yesh machmirin litanot b'shneim. There are those who are strict, and they will fast on both of them. Okay? I'm sorry?
2 yahrtzeits?
Yes. And also one could say 2 Kaddishes. Now, realize that by us saying Kaddish, it's pretty easy. Meaning, you could have 1 person saying Kaddish, you could have 30 people saying Kaddish. However, the halacha actually, and this is the minhag that the German Jewish communities follow, that only 1 person says Kaddish. And therefore, they will divide up the different Kaddishes amongst different people. And when there are more people than Kaddishes, then it's a matter of seeing who has Kedima, who takes precedence. Okay? So he says over here that one on that second Adar would not be able to push off Kaddish twice. Meaning, he'll have to, probably do it the first month. He can't say, well, I got yahrtzeit both months, and therefore I take precedent over others, right? He is low on the totem pole, right?
First month.
No, according to the Ramah, right? So he does it in the first month. So if he did in the first month, the second month would be the one that would get, where he would not have kedima. He would not take precedence. Okay. Now, another very interesting case that the Mishnah Berurah brings up is with the third on the line. I wrote there the 30th of Cheshvan equals the 29th of February. Meaning, even according to our set calendar, there are some months which will sometimes have 29 days, sometimes have 30 days. Keep in mind that it's not an even 354 or an even 365. Okay? So therefore there are minor adjustments that are made by making a month, making some of these swing months either 29 days or 30 days. So like February 29th, when someone's born on February 29th, right? So are they actually their age divided by 4? Right? So when do they celebrate their birthday? Is it on the 28th? Right? Because the 29th was the day before March 1st. So therefore, it'll be February 28th, the day before March 1st. Or is it on March 1st that they celebrate their birthday because they were born the day after February 28th? And therefore, their birthday should be March 1st, the day after February 28th. Now, there are no Hilchot birthday, right? There are no laws pertaining to a birthday. So one can either have cake or not have cake on either day, or have happy birthday sung to them on either day or on neither day. On both or on neither, right? However, where it does become relevant is in our case of a yahrtzeit. If a person's parent died on the 30th day of Cheshvan, and in subsequent years where there's only 29 days of Cheshvan, there is no 30th day of Cheshvan, so when is the yahrtzeit observed? Is it observed on the 29th day of Cheshvan, or is it observed on the first day of Kislev? That's the question. A little diagram there. So Cheshvan has 28, 29. The next day is a swing day. It's either the 30th of Cheshvan or it's the first of Kislev. Either way, it's celebrated as Rosh Chodesh. If it is the 30th of Kislev, then the next day will be the first of Kislev, and we have our 2 days celebration of the new moon of Rosh Chodesh. So that's the question over here. If a person's yahrtzeit is on the 30th of Cheshvan, is it commemorated on a year where there's only 29 days as the 29th of Cheshvan, or the first of Kislev? So I have that both in Hebrew and in English. This is again from the Chafetz Chaim Mishnah Berurah. Mishameit Aviv Biyom Rishon to Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Someone whose parent died on the first day of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Remember, that's actually the 30th day of Cheshvan. When there are 2 days of Rosh Chodesh, the first day is the 30th day of the previous month. Uleshana Haba'ah, and in the following year, Haya Cheshvan Chaser. Cheshvan was only 29 days. Rosh Chodesh Kislev, the Rosh Chodesh, the new month of Kislev, is only Yom Echad, is only 1 day. Tzarich iyun matai yit'aneh. We need to look into when will he fast. In Bechet Chavtet L'Cheshvan, do we say 29th of Cheshvan, which is the day before Rosh Chodesh Kislev, as his father died on the 30th, the day before Rosh Chodesh Kislev? Tahala Olam Yom Sheni Ikar. The second day Rosh Chodesh is the real day of Rosh Chodesh. The second day of Rosh Chodesh is the first of the month. And that's how we figure the holidays. Shemona L'Modot Misheni. We count our holidays from then. So do we say the 30th day is really the day, it's not Rosh Chodesh, it was the day before the real Rosh Chodesh. So next year, the 29th is the day before the real and only Rosh Chodesh. Therefore it would be the last day, the 29th of Cheshvan. So really, his yahrtzeit was the last day of Cheshvan, which that year was 30. So to this year be the last day of Cheshvan, which is 29 days. Oh, Nema, or we can say no. Ta'al kol panim have a shame Rosh Chodesh alav. That 30th day of Cheshvan was called, it was named, it's termed Rosh Chodesh. And therefore his yahrtzeit should be when? On Rosh Chodesh. And therefore that would be his yahrtzeit. Of course we don't fast on Rosh Chodesh, but that would be his yahrtzeit. Umasik HaMagen Avram. The Magen Avram concludes as follows. Di'im shana rishona lemitat aviv hashana hi chaseira. K'mo shekatavnu. In the situation that we wrote above, that his father passed away on the 30th, it was if the first year that the father passed away was chaseira, okay? So the father passed away on the 30th. The next year, there's only 29 days. So he has not yet established any set pattern of his yahrtzeit. Yikava yahrtzeit b'chavtet l'chodesh cheshvan. Then the yahrtzeit would be the 29th day of cheshvan. Okay, the day before Rosh Chodesh.
And following years?
And that's how it will be forever. So again, the father passed away the 30th. Next year there's only 29 days of Cheshvan. The yahrtzeit will be on the 29th. And so on. That's it. Forever. However.
But if he chooses to go do the next day, that would be forever?
Well, he shouldn't do that.
He shouldn't do that. Okay.
His Magen Avram says, in such a case, you should pick the 29th of Cheshvan. The father died on the 30th. Next year there's only 29 days. You should pick the 29th day as the day before the real Rosh Chodesh, and that will be the yahrtzeit from there on out, the 29th of Cheshvan.
When you have somebody who dies and is not buried within 3 days, usually the first year's yahrtzeit is the burial day.
Well, there are different opinions.
And then it switches.
Actually, the Mishnah Brura brings that no matter what, we go after the date of death, right? The custom that most people follow is if it's the day or the day after, it's the day of death. Otherwise, after that, it will be right.
Like if it's 3 days.
Correct. The first year.
The first year only. So there's where we don't pick one date and stick with it. We
Correct.
pick one date and then
Correct.
change it.
But according to Mishnah Brura, actually, it's the date of death, period, regardless of when the burial was. Aval, but Kishashana Rishona Hi Gamkein Maleya. Let's say we've got 2 consecutive years of, now whereas we can't have 2 consecutive February 29th years, we can have 2 consecutive 30-day Cheshvan years. So in that case, right, he passed away on the 30th of Cheshvan. Next year there's the 30th of Cheshvan. So there's nothing to talk about. Right? When will his yahrtzeit be that next year observed? On the 30th of Cheshvan. So what is the pattern that he's setting into place now? That he's celebrating or he's commemorating the yahrtzeit on Rosh Chodesh. So since he's establishing that first year, therefore he will establish it on Rosh Chodesh. So too in the following years, even though they're only 29-day years, Yikba Barosh Chodesh. It'll be established on Rosh Chodesh. Okay, and there are those that say that it's always established on Rosh Chodesh, but the minhag of the world, the Chavetz Chaim says, is like the Magen Avram. So it all depends on what's the year after. If the year after is a shortened year, a shortened month, I should say, right? Then you would do it on day 29, and your yahrtzeit will always be the day before Rosh Chodesh, since essentially the 30th, even though we treat it as Rosh Chodesh, it really, in its essence, is the day before Rosh Chodesh. We treat it as the start of the month, but the date on the calendar is the 30th of the previous month. So even though we treat it as Rosh Chodesh, It actually is the day before Rosh Chodesh. Therefore, the next year, which day will you pick? The 29th, which is the day before Rosh Chodesh. But if the next year is the 30, also has 30 days. Therefore, it will clearly be on the 30th. So you've established the 30th as your Rosh Chodesh, as yahrtzeit. The first year your yahrtzeit was on Rosh Chodesh. So too, every following year, your yahrtzeit will be on Rosh Chodesh. And Ray made a good point that very often our first year is not, right, is based, right, if the burial wasn't on the day of or the day after, then the yahrtzeit is going to be neither of those days, and therefore it would just follow then that the year after that, which is the first time that you were really observing the yahrtzeit, that's where this din of the Magen Avraham would be in play. That's what I would imagine, right? And therefore, if that year is only a 29-day cheshvan, it's the 29th, and so on for all years. If that year is a 30-day cheshvan, then it will be the 30th, and all following years it'll be Aleph Kislev. It'll be, once you've established it on Rosh Chodesh, it'll remain on Rosh Chodesh. So we end up having really for the Minhag Ashkenazim, we have the din. The law is that it's the second one when it comes to Megillah reading, and that we're learning out from Mesamech Geula to Geula. We want to have a Geula back to back to Geula. Gemara also brings another pasuk Hashenit, which could be used, which could be argued that it's applying to that. However, when it comes to a yahrtzeit where we're going to show honor, so there we want to show honor right away. It will be dishonorable for the first opportunity to observe the yahrtzeit to pass by, and it's a day that we are essentially ignoring as a yahrtzeit. That would be a show of dishonor. Therefore, we do the first one, and even both when that is possible. Now, Roberto brought up.
Who's that?
Chaya Rivka, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Chaya Rivka.
I answered to both.
Chaya Rivka brought up, how about Bar Mitzvah? Okay? Now, Bar Mitzvah, the way that we celebrate a Bar Mitzvah is by having the boy, who's no longer now a minor, do things that only an adult can do. He'll read the Torah for us. We need to have an adult reading the Torah. He'll get an aliyah. One needs to be an adult to get an aliyah. He'll be the shliach tzibur. He'll lead the davening. One needs to be an adult in order to lead the davening. Okay? Therefore, what would you say if a person is born? Now, if a person is born on a year where there are 2 Adars, and his Bar Mitzvah, there are 2 Adars, his Bar Mitzvah will be in whichever Adar he was born. Right? There's only one Adar, there aren't too many options. Right? That will be his Bar Mitzvah. Right? You know, a classic Jewish trivia question that one could always pose at a table for some good table talk is, how do you have someone who was born 2 weeks after someone and has their Bar Mitzvah 2 weeks before that person? He was born 2 weeks after, his Bar Mitzvah is 2 weeks before, right? And the answer would be, let's say a boy was born, one boy was born on the 20th of Adar 1. Another boy was born 2 weeks later, right? On the 4th of Adar 2. Now, the year of their Bar Mitzvah, there's only 1 month of Adar. So the one who was born on the 4th of Adar 2, 2 weeks after the other fellow, has his Bar Mitzvah on the 4th of Adar, the only Adar. And the boy who was born on the 20th of Adar 1 will have his Bar Mitzvah 16 days later on the 20th of Adar 1. Okay? So that's the Jewish trivia question. It's always good if you ever at a meal and they say, how about a Devar Torah? So you can always pull that one out of your back pocket, right, and give that little Jewish trivia riddle. But in terms of Bar Mitzvah, so a person was born in Adar, and now there are 2 Adars of his Bar Mitzvah year. when is it going to be celebrated? When is his actual bar mitzvah?
First Adar.
Why the first Adar?
Because you don't pass by a mitzvah.
Okay, I'm going to argue and say the second Adar. Why might I say that?
Because that was when he...
Because he needs to be... we're saying he's chayav in mitzvot. He's obligated in mitzvot. And he's going to be motzi us. He's going to be fulfilling the mitzvah for us. He can only do that when he is a bona fide adult. When are we sure that he's an adult?
By the second Adar.
By the second Adar.
Yes.
When it came to yahrtzeit, there was a matter of giving honor. Okay, but bar mitzvah is not giving honor. Bar mitzvah is obligation. Right? So the point of his obligation, we see when it comes to the mitzvah of Megillah, the mitzvah kicks in by the second Adar, where it's not a matter of honor, where it's a matter of obligation. The mitzvah kicks in for Megillah, for Purim, etc. on the second Adar. Bar mitzvah, his mitzvah will kick in at the second Adar,
Does
not
that go
the first
for a
one.
birthday too?
Again, birthday, there are no hilchos birthday.
No, okay, because someone in the family's having a birthday, and I figured I'm going to celebrate 2 or 3 times because we have 2 Adars in one segment.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. Right, the happy occasions can be celebrated as much as you want. When there are no laws about that, right? So I would say celebrate the first one. Let's get get a nice simcha going over there, and then do it again.
3 times.
I'm sorry?
This year we'll do it 3 times.
3 times?
Well, 2 Adars and the regular secular birthday.
Oh, okay. Okay, go for it. Knock yourself out. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so those are the 3 applications of Adar, and it's interesting, according to the Sephardic halacha, so there it is perfectly consistent. Adar 2, Adar 2, Adar 2. Whereas for us, when it comes to yahrtzeit, we break rank, and there, the fasting on the yahrtzeit, and the kedima, the precedence of the kaddishes, that will take place in the first Adar, That's how the Ashkenazim rule. And as we said, one of the reasons the Gemara gives for the second Adar is mismach geula legeula. You want to have back-to-back geula, so redemption. So let's leave off with the hope and the prayer that this year will usher in months and a year of complete and full geula, complete and full redemption. Okay, my friends, we'll call it over here.
Question, Rabbi.
Yes, Beth.
Do you sell up on a Sunday?